Well, good afternoon, guys. On this rather overcast and stormy day, I'm just outside of Salina right now to botanize the Arapien Shale exposures you get in this area. Like just outside of Salina, running down to Richfield, and a little further south, and also further north from here, in central Utah, in the Sevier River Valley. As you can tell, or hopefully can tell by looking at the surrounding hills here, this is a pretty tough formation for plants to grow in. It's got some things that make it chemically very harsh, in addition to how it seems to erode very quickly. It's mostly made of limestone, shale, and thick gypsum deposits, all kinds of different things that make it hard for plants to grow. It's not a very nutrient-rich soil. It probably has an overabundance of calcium and sulfate and much lower levels of things like potassium, iron, magnesium, although I guess some of the red banding there probably does come from iron, as so often it does. But I don't want to talk too much about geology because I don't know much about it. But the point is that this is a very harsh substrate for many plants to grow in, which means you don't get a lot necessarily, but we do get a few endemics, which I'm hoping to see today. Right here, though, we're getting a lot of this, of course, Juniperus osteosperma, or Utah juniper, which I'm coming to realize can do fairly well in harsh soils. It was doing pretty good on the Manco Shale salt desert I was in like about a month ago. It seems to be thriving here. We got some new ones coming up, of course. I might see some, I think it'd be Pinus edulis in this area rather than Pinus monophylla, even though this is kind of more like the Great Basin. We're still, I think, in the range of the Colorado pinyon rather than the single leaf pinyon. And we're also getting a lot of Shadscale here as well. Atriplex confertifolia. The other side of the road, I'm seeing some Greasewood. I'm also seeing Greasewood right here. I just noticed that. This is a Sarcobatus vermiculatus, a somewhat close relative to the family Amaranthacea, which includes the Atriplex I was just talking about. I swear I read that Atriplex confertifolia tends to like well-joined soils, while Sarcobatus vermiculatus prefers poorly joined soils, but that definitely doesn't match my experience too much. Maybe that's what it prefers, but it definitely seems to do well in some of these soils. Right here, I'd like to do a soil test here, but I imagine this is really crumbly, kind of dusty clay stuff here. Like for all the shale eroding and all the gypsum and other stuff inside it. I'll talk about some interesting qualities of gypsum later, because this has some interesting implications what plants you can thrive on it and what kind of adaptations they need. Do you hear all that thunder? This is maybe not the best idea. Well, one more plant before I move on. This is Tetradymia spinescens, I think, or Tetradymia spinosa, my bad. Speaking of Tetradymia canescens for a second. Bit of a deciduous plant here. Actually, wait, is this a different species of Tetradymia? Oh crap, now I gotta look that up. I did see some Tetradymia spinescens. I'll get back to you on what this one is, but let's just see what else we can find today. I'm hoping we can find some of the endemics this area is known for. Okay, now this is Tetradymia spinosa. That one actually, funny enough, has smaller spines than many other species of Tetradymia, like glabrata and axillaris that you might find in the region. Well, axillaris is found in the Mojave Desert, so quite a bit of ways from here, but you do find it in the St. George area, because that is technically a Mojave Desert. And if you're wondering why it looks so dead, it's because the plant is indeed drought deciduous. So all its leaves have gotten ready to fall off, and it's been a very dry summer so far, though. That seems to have changed. We've gotten a big surge of moisture, I think related to the monsoon, into Utah. So now in the next few weeks might be rather rainy, which, I mean, I'm happy for that. It's been so dry and fire prone recently that we really need it. As I said, this rock formation, well, dates back to the Jurassic. I think more of the middle to late Jurassic than early Jurassic. And it wasn't really during the time of the Western Interior Seaway. But, oh, there is a pinyon pine. Let's see what that is in a second. But either way, it was a time when, I think this was formed along the edge of the sea, not in deep water for the most part, although there was some changing and shifting of the sea line, as there always is. Yeah, that's definitely Pinus edulis, the two-needle pinyon, or the Colorado pinyon. Same, of course, because it has needles in bunches of two. And when you typically find the Colorado Plateau, as I said, Pinus monophylla is more in the Great Basin, which I think we're definitely more Great Basin in this area than Colorado Plateau, but there are some definite exceptions to that rule. Either way, this whole rock formation formed in the context of the middle to late Jurassic, right along the shore of the sea. And I think gypsum deposits have to form by seawater repeatedly evaporating, leaving behind the calcium and sulfate, because that's really what gypsum is. It's a hydrated form of calcium sulfate, also known as anhydrous. So that repeatedly, and then of course there were times when more shale was being deposited. So you get like clay particles typically. Some animals were forming limestone. It's probably some mudstone too. Again, I'm not the geologist here. I did consult with a geologist for this, though, only really on how to pronounce Arapien because I had no clue and couldn't find the literature. So thanks to Sarah Z. Gibson, who very kindly answered my kind of goofy question. It's actually a bit of a local geologist, not exactly in this area, but another place in Utah where there are notable Arapien Shale formations. I can't remember what university she works at now, but big thanks to her for answering that question of mine so I can sound slightly more intelligent. Now here, we got some type of Eriogonum. But the Eriogonum I'm looking for, I just mentioned, is one of the species I know that are endemic to here, is Eriogonum mytophyllum. I don't think this is it though, but I can't tell what species of Eriogonum it is either. Because I'm not very good at them, unfortunately. I mean, I can't be blamed though too much. It's a very big genus of over close to 300 species in Western North America. It can be very tricky to tell them apart. But there is an endemic Eriogonum. Here there's also an endemic Menzelia, an endemic Facilia, and endemic variety of Ericomeria nauseosa, and a few others that are mostly restricted to this area that I'm keeping an eye open for. But let's carry on. Now that's incredible. I think one of those lightning strikes I heard just a few minutes ago started a wildfire up there, because I didn't see anything that could be smoky when I first drove up this way. Should probably report that. Okay, I went back the way I came, just about half a mile, and got this much better exposure of Arapien Shale, because where I was starting to get increasingly volcanic. Like it seemed like there was some volcanic rock that derived from whatever must have eroded on top of Arapien Shale. I was getting to an increasingly volcanic area. Either way, I love badland topography, but look at this weird astragalus, or I'm pretty sure it's an astragalus. It certainly looks like something in the pea family at least, Fabaceae. It's got all this dead tissue. It seems like it's only just now starting to come up for the year. So what could it possibly be? I really, there's only so much you can prepare for a trip like this. Like for botany trips, you just gotta throw yourself in at a certain point. Like you can learn all you want, but you just gotta, if you're going to a new place, you have to be ready to throw yourself into it and just be prepared to be wrong a little bit. Now, where was that? I just saw this. Oh, there you go, look at this. This is actually, it's not gonna show up on camera very well, I don't think, but that's like a really kind of glassy like crystal I found. And I saw some of this in the San Rafael swell in the video I haven't yet uploaded, but might maybe during the winter time. But I'm pretty sure this is just selenite, which is like a crystallized form of gypsum. So I think we must be in the gypsiferous area by now. I don't know if you guys noticed, gypsum, one characteristic that's important about gypsum and calcium sulfate in general is that it is extremely water soluble, much more so than calcium carbonate. Now, unlike calcium carbonate, it does not react with natural acidity from the carbonic acid in rainwater that just forms when, as rainwater passes through the atmosphere, picks up little bits of CO2 and forms a weak acid, carbonic acid that helps dissolve limestone over time. In addition to the fact that it's naturally water soluble, but it's stable in water enough that you can get limestone outcrops in the tropics that are fairly persistent, but they will be eroding, get that sort of dogtooth stuff going on. Gypsum though is probably, or say calcium sulfate is like maybe 10 or more times more soluble in water. So you really only you can get gypsum deposits all over the world, but on the surface like this and with gypsum rich soils is almost always in places that are semi-arid at least, if not fully arid, because otherwise it just would wash away too quickly. So gypsum endemism is something that you really only get in the semi-arid and arid portions of the world, which you certainly are in now. I think the Richfield area only gets like 10 inches of rainfall a year, sometimes less. More of a Tetradymia spinosa. Now, Tetradymia is a member of Asteraceae. Actually, a toxic member of Asteraceae. A lot of sheep have been poisoned by eating it. And the spines are really reduced on these guys too. at that. Is that some kind of Tetradymia gall? There. It's like a little pore where whatever made it must have exited. That's really interesting. Probably some kind of wasp. Man, galls are really understudied. So if you guys want to discover a new species, get into studying galls. I think it's cercidology is a study of galls. Now there's a much better example of a selenite I was talking about. Just crystalline gypsum forming right in the soil. In addition to being a very water-soluble mineral, gypsum's pretty weak on its own. I think it's actually, if you use a Mohs scale, it's Mohs number 2. So one of the weakest rocks or minerals there is around. Not seeing a whole lot on these badland slopes, which I guess is, what else could I have expected? Aside from the Atriplex confertifolia that I mentioned previously. This Eriogonum I keep seeing, which it could be Eriogonum metophyllum. It looks a little bit like it, but I don't know. I thought it was supposed to have longer leaves, but then again, all the leaves are dried up right now. So I can't say for sure, and I'm nobody's Eriogonum expert. Got a few shoots coming up on some of these plants. It's actually fairly common locally. It's a new, or living branches at least. But it's the same thing I'm seeing here, there, down there. So if it's Eriogonum metophyllum, and I am in the right portion of the Arapien Shale, because some of these plants I mentioned I might see, like Phacelia utahensis, occurs all throughout this whole exposure from, like, I think, is it Gunnison in the north down to Richfield, but this one really only occurs just outside of Salina. The Eriogonum metophyllum does, at least as far as you're aware, or their sources could say that I read. But I don't know. And we're also getting this ephedra, which I saw a lot at lower elevations. It could be ephedra toriana or nevadensis, I think, or maybe nevadensi. I think it might be that one. That's what Seek seems to think. I put Seek on probation after it led me astray with the Dicoria canescens in Death Valley, which was actually Salsola tragus. But yeah, it's got either be toriana or nevadensis. I need to figure out my ephedras. And to top all this, I am getting increasingly self-conscious of the fact that I am standing on a ridgeline during this thunderous weather, and that tree was started by a lightning, or that fire was started by a lightning strike. It must have hit a tree on a ridgeline, so I'm gonna maybe be heading back down now. So we're getting around here. It must be ephedra viridis. It's the only ephedra I'm good at identifying, but green ephedra. So easy to tell apart from the others by how green it is. In fact, its branches usually point straight up, and the whole plant likes to grow very erect and not scrubby on the ground. It's on the hills there. Yeah, I'm starting to get rained on, but at least there's no more lightning, so I'm gonna head back to my car and see if there's something else another way I can find these plants. Well, it's a little difficult to confirm right now, but I think I just found my Mentzelia argilosa. And it was really Mentzelia argilosa and Eriogonum metophyllum that I had the highest hopes of seeing here. I know it's a very shrubby plant like this, and I haven't seen anything else that looks kind of like this, but I don't have any flowers that would be really helpful to tell if it was a Mentzelia, just some developing fruit, it would seem. It does have very small flowers for a Mentzelia, and Mentzelias are usually known for having big, beautiful flowers, so maybe not the best thing to be known for if you're a rare plant, but it is kind of cool that it just grows on these Arapien Shale deposits, and it's so distinctive. And they're usually much less shrubby than this. Like, this is an herbaceous plant, I believe, still, but they're usually more just like regular wildflowers, one or maybe a couple stems that grow tall and proud and produce big flowers at the top, not some weird semi-shrub like this. Man, if this turns out not to be Mentzelia argilosa, I'm gonna be so embarrassed. And even if I haven't found any of my target species, I am so glad I got a chance to experience gypsum soils and see what they're all about, and just how barren they get, how steep their slopes often are, how few species can tolerate them. Really a big learning experience for me. So, I mean, they do seem a lot like calcium carbonate rich soils as well, though gypsum soils, unlike calcium carbonate soils, are always going to be fairly harsh towards plant life, or extremely harsh, I should say. There's calcium carbonate rich soils that are support all kinds of plants. It really depends on the concentration, of course, and it does apply to gypsum as well. But this is just such a fantastic thing to see firsthand for a guy like me that's into this stuff. Not sure how much longer I want to stay out here though. I think the worst of the rain should be coming not too distantly in the future. I think this might be a Sarcobatus montanus. Anyway, that's the Alder-leaf mountain mahogany. This one is deciduous in the winter time, unlike Lettifolius, which I've not seen here, interestingly. That might be Eriogonum flava or something like that, though without any flowers or really any identifying features, it's difficult to tell anything about it aside from it's likely an Eriogonum. I wonder how quickly these slopes are eroding and maybe how they compare to the very calcium carbonate rich Claron Formation exposures you get in Bryce Canyon and Cedar Breaks, because I feel like this has got to be going so fast. It's another reason why these soils are, like I mentioned it before, the fact they erode so quickly makes it really hard for plants to get a foothold in rich soils to develop. So, I mean, yeah, how quickly does it take for this slope to go backwards a foot, for instance? That's what I really wonder. Bet it's surprisingly quick. Certainly it isn't quick in geological terms. Sorry, is quick. Not really sure what I'm looking for anymore. I'd like to see a Phacelia utahensis, but if I do, it's definitely well past its time for blooming, so it might just be the skeleton of that plant. Like a little band of, as mentioned, like the super gypsum-rich formations or layers within the Arapien Shale tend to have these blotches of iron oxide, not solid layers of it, like you see on the mountains back there. And just so you guys know, that stuff had to have been really heavily warped. That's sort of a characteristic of the Arapien Shale, is how warped and smushed together it is, which happened during the various orogenies that built the Rocky Mountains. This whole formation, which was underlying it all, got pushed around a lot because it's so fragile. We need all these layers to be folded and tilted upwards, but they're originally laid down flat. It's the law of original horizontality, I think. Yeah, I'm not going to see much more. So we're starting to get some Linanthus pungens as well. It's a favorite of mine, a shrubby member of the genus, though. Between phlox and Linanthus, there's quite a lot of species that can look like this in Utah, especially if you're not too familiar with them, which I definitely am not. So why am I talking about them? I don't know. That's a good question. I think these might also be Hesperostipicomata, that or some type of wheatgrass, but I'm thinking Hesperostipicomata. Definitely seen some Eriogonum hymonoides as well, I've neglected to talk about for some reason. I do love Hesperostipicomata, but it's my favorite grass for sure. This is definitely an Eriogonum hymonoides. It's like it's already cast off its seeds, or I should say caryopsis. It's the fruit that grass produce. It just looks like a seed. Isn't that interesting? But I was going to make the top burn and find some more of those plants that look like they could have been the Mentzelia species I was looking for. Seems like this probably is the Mentzelia argilosa after all. It's got very grippy leaves like a lot of Mentzelias do. One thing I forgot to mention, this is a member of the family Loasaceae, which has most of its diversity in the western United States and into Mexico, where I believe it evolved, though it also made its way to the dry areas of South America. It's definitely an arid adapted family. Only about 300 species, but a significant number are in South America, where it's good radiation. Filled a lot of the niches there. Really cool family. I mean, it's also known for the genus Unites, spelled more like Eucnide, which I saw a beautiful specimen of in Death Valley. Unite urens. Not sure I talked about it in that big video I made though. I feel like I'm soon going to break that record for longest video, but here I am at the top of the ridge now. And just look at that view. I mean, who could really have thought that there would be rare plants found nowhere else on Earth? I mean, just like a casual person, if they were to see this area, how many would actually know that there's rare plants that could only be found here in such a barren area? I feel like not a lot of people would have guessed that. It is so windy right now. I can't wait to go back. I just got to find a better way to get down than the way I came up from, because look how steep that is. Not looking forward to going down that if I can help it. So I might get down to that river valley, or sorry, dry wash I should say, what's the difference, I might do it, but I'm gonna give a tentative thanks for watching and see you next time for now. I guess I should talk about some of the cactus I've been seeing, and truthfully I don't really know. Looks a lot like Opuntia fragilis in terms of how its limbs are shaped, like they're almost more club shaped than paddle shaped, but it's just so spiny. I mean, even for an Opuntia polyacantha, which is what the spines would lead me to believe, it'd be an exceptionally spiny specimen, which is really cool to see. And right behind it we got Echinocerius triglycidiatus, a classic of the deserts all over Utah. It produces its flowers from areoles on the side, which we may not be able to see examples of here. Oh, there you go, that's sort of a spent flower, maybe developing into a fruit right there. And it's of course emerging from the side, which is what it tends to do, as I just said. It's exactly what it does. But I have a really cool plant overall. Of course, I always got to give a shout out to Crescenticovia lanata whenever I see it. Member of Amaranthacea, which as a family I've not talked about much on this video, despite it being perhaps the bulk of the plants I've seen out here, just not that many in terms of species. Crescenticovia lanata. I guess there's been a lot of ephedras and other things too. Either way, also known as winter fat, if I haven't said that already. Quite commonly on some of these harsher clay soils, though not super harsh. You don't see on the really barren areas, like certainly not on the upper slopes. I wouldn't find it at all. Look how beautiful that banding is. It's been alternating phases when sediment were being deposited, where there is an abundance of iron-bearing minerals being deposited alongside of whatever else was being laid down there, be it limestone, shale, or something else. Okay, I think for real now, I'm going to say thanks for watching and see you next time. And if you enjoyed this video, I've got a lot more like it.